There's an old African proverb that reads, "When death finds you, may it find you alive." Welcome to The Cellar. Erica Marshall was a 28-year-old woman who grew up in Medford, New Jersey. Medford is a township in Burlington County. The township has a population of around 25,000 residents. Erica grew up loving horses, and that love would eventually lead her to studying equine science at Hyperbaric College near Gloucester, England. While attending school, Erica would meet her future husband, Kieran Marshall. The pair would marry and move to Ocala, Florida in 2010. Erica was offered a role at the Kentucky Equine Sports and Rehab Center, and she couldn't pass up the opportunity. Ocala, Florida is located in north central Florida. The city has a population of around 63,000 total residents. Ocala is the principal city of the Ocala metropolitan area, which has a population of around 375,000 total residents. Ocala is considered the horse capital of the world, as it is home to over 400 thoroughbred farms and training centers. It's easy to say that Erica was living her best life. She married the man she loved and was able to move and work within the horse capital of the world. And that now brings us to February 10th, 2012. Erica was working on treating a horse at the Kesmark Equine Rehab Facility in Morriston, Florida. The horse was suffering from a disease known as EPM. EPM is a neurological disease that horses get from eating infected opossum feces. Incoordination, muscle atrophy, and loss of feeling around the body are some of the symptoms of the illness. In order to treat the horse, Erica was using a hyperbaric chamber. I found in my research that oxygen therapy can benefit a horse with EPM, as ozone and oxygen go through the blood-brain barrier, so it is an excellent way to aid treatment of any kind of neurological disease, including EPM. Erica had been running the hyperbaric chamber for over 2 years, as it had become a part of her daily job. She would treat anywhere between 2 to 6 horses every day, so it's easy to say she had become a bit of a pro at this point. Erica would soon begin bringing the horse into the chamber. She was accompanied at the time by Surha Monali, who was a 33-year-old woman from Ireland. She was visiting at the time and was there as an observer. Erica and Surha would get the horse into the chamber with no issues. The horse had never given them any problems in the past, so they felt no need to tranquilize the horse for its follow-up treatment. As the treatment began, all seemed normal. This was a normal everyday task for Erica, and she didn't believe this particular day would be any different than the many that had come before. But as the treatment continued, the horse began getting agitated. Erica would attempt to calm the horse down, but for some reason the horse wasn't having it on this day. It began kicking against the wall of the chamber. Now, the chambers are covered in a special padding inside to protect the metal wall. But as the horse continued kicking, it managed to kick straight through a portion of the padding. As the horse's metal shoe came into contact and scraped along the metal wall, it created a spark. The one thing that can't occur within a hyperbaric chamber then occurred. That spark would immediately ignite the pure oxygen that was filling the room. In an instant, the hyperbaric chamber would explode. Erica Marshall's life, as well as the horse's, were ended right then and there. Surha Monali would miraculously survive the ordeal. She was immediately airlifted to Shands Hospital in Gainesville, Florida. She suffered serious injuries and had to undergo numerous surgeries, but she would pull through in the end. Following the incident, the police would investigate and ultimately rule what transpired as just a horrible accident. But that would not stop Erica's husband from eventually filing a lawsuit against everyone involved in his late wife's death. From what's been reported in the lawsuit, in the weeks leading up to the accident, officials at Kesmark discovered that the hyperbaric chamber was not functioning properly. They relayed their concerns to Equine Oxygen Therapy Resources Incorporated, who were supposed to repair the chamber before the accident. The lawsuit also points out that Kesmark continued to operate the chamber even though the repairs were not performed. With no repairs performed, his wife Erica would eventually perish within that chamber. Now, it's not clear if what happened to Erica was directly related to the repairs that needed to be done, but nonetheless, if the chamber was in need of a repair, it should have been shut down until the repairs had been complete. And at the end of the day, the lawsuit will not bring Erica back, and all I can hope is that she didn't suffer in the end. I want to send my deepest condolences to Erica's husband, her family, and all of her friends. Maria Pantazopoulos was a 30-year-old real estate agent from Laval, Quebec. Laval is a city located in Quebec, Canada. It is in the southwest of the province, north of Montreal. Laval is the third largest city in the province after Montreal and Quebec City, and the 13th largest city in all of Canada. Laval has a population of roughly 443,000 residents. It was Friday, August 17, 2012. Maria had a photo shoot planned later that afternoon. At the time, Maria was on top of the world. She had just recently purchased a home and had started working as a real estate agent with Via Capital. To add to it all, she had just gotten married back on June 9th. Following her wedding, Maria and her husband enjoyed a beautiful honeymoon in the Caribbean. It's easy to say that life was going really well for Maria. After getting done with some work-related business, Maria picked up her wedding dress and headed to her photo shoot. Maria was described as someone who was extremely fun. Maria absolutely did not want her wedding dress to be packed away, collecting dust in a box or closet somewhere, so she had decided to do a trash the dress photo shoot. For those that don't know what that is, trash the dress is a style of wedding photography that contrasts elegant feminine clothing with an environment that is out of place. The photos are typically shot in the style of fashion or glamour photography, often taking place on a beach, lake, stream, city streets, you name it. Within the photo, the dress is typically trashed by getting it wet, dirty, or even at times destroying the garment altogether. From my research, most people agree that the trash the dress picture idea started trending fairly recently back in 2001. That's when Las Vegas wedding photographer John Michael Cooper got bored of shooting traditional wedding scenes. He soon convinced some open-minded brides to pose in grungy offbeat settings, and thus the trash the dress phenomenon began and has continued on since. Maria soon arrived at the agreed-upon photo shoot location. The photographer taking the pictures had recommended a location along the Uru River in Rawdon, about 75 kilometers northeast of Montreal. From all reports, the first batch of photos went well. She was in shallow water and having a blast taking photos and posing in her dress. Soon, Maria decided she wanted to take some pictures of herself floating within the water. Now, I have seen numerous ways this is reported, so I'm going to try and get it as accurate as can be. But from what's been said, Maria's dress soon became heavy and soaked within the river. As she tried to stay afloat, it soon became apparent that the dress was going to pull her under. As it did, the photographer attempted to get a hold of Maria and help guide her back to where she could stand. It only took a brief moment before Maria's head slipped below the water. The photographer desperately tried to help Maria. The more he tried to help her, the more he kept getting pulled under the water with her. According to the photographer, he tried numerous times to save her, but she eventually lost what strength she had and eventually let go of him, slipping away into the river's current. Numerous attempts were made to dive in and find Maria, but she was gone in an instant. Emergency services were soon called to the scene, and a local diver ended up showing up to help the cause. At around 4:30 p.m., the local diver discovered Maria's body in the water and soon pulled her out of the river. Maria had been on top of the world, and in an instant, her life was taken in such a tragic manner. Her story just goes to show that life is not fair. It doesn't play favorites, and sometimes your end can come when you least expect it. As always, my deepest condolences go out to Maria, as well as all her family and friends. Mariessa Weber was a 38-year-old woman from Newport Richey, Florida. Newport Richey is a city in Pasco County, Florida. The city's population is around 16,000 residents. Now, there's not a ton of information in regards to the story, but according to reports, Mariessa still lived at home with numerous members of her family. The conditions within this home were not all that pleasant, to say the least. The house was full of trash in every corner of every room. There were birds, cats, and dogs in cages. It wasn't the cleanliest of living conditions for anyone. Which now brings us to the end of October 2006. Mariessa came home one day, and according to her family, she just vanished. It didn't take long before Mariessa's family contacted law enforcement, and an official search was underway. 12 days would pass with no sign of Mariessa. As every day went by, the family felt more and more hopeless, not knowing where she could have gone or what could have possibly happened to her. As each day passed, the family began smelling something awful within the house. With the living conditions being what they were already, the family chalked the smell up to dead rodents in the walls of the home. That was until day 12 rolled around. That was the day Mariessa was finally found. Mariessa's sister would enter Mariessa's room and have another look around. As she looked through, she got a glimpse of something behind the bookshelf. Now, this bookshelf was described as being 6 foot tall and extremely heavy. As she attempted to look behind it, she finally located her sister. She was there in the house the entire time. While they were out looking for her, she was right there in her bedroom, just under their nose. So what happened to Mariessa? Well, from what has been reported, she had stepped on something in order to reach around the back of the bookcase and plug an item into the wall. As she did, she lost her balance and fell headfirst, getting herself stuck between the bookcase and the wall. Now, from what's been reported by the police, Mariessa was 5'2" and only 79 pounds. She was a very petite girl, so when she got wedged behind the heavy bookcase, there wasn't much she could do to shake herself free of it. It's ultimately unclear how long she was stuck back there still alive. It could have been minutes, hours, or it could have been a couple of days. But eventually, she succumbed to positional asphyxiation. Positional asphyxiation occurs when an individual is placed in a position that ultimately obstructs the breathing. To add to it all, a toxicology report would later reveal that Mariessa had a large cocktail of drugs within her system. She had recently taken morphine, codeine, marijuana, an antihistamine, an anti-inflammatory, an antidepressant known as Celexa, and an anti-anxiety drug called Xanax. Between her petite frame and the massive cocktail that she had consumed, the combination really put Mariessa in a bad place when she had become wedged behind that bookcase. In the end, I can't imagine what her family must have felt when they finally located her, knowing that she was so close, yet seemingly so far at the very same time. No one should have to go out alone like that. As always, my deepest condolences go out to all of Mariessa's family and friends. So for this last story, I would like you all to take it with a grain of salt. I was researching online and came about a story someone posted about an accident that took place within a poultry factory back in the 70s or 80s. The exact date was not given. After I finished reading the story, it really stuck with me and made me want to cover it on the channel. So I tried to find some corroborating evidence for this particular story, but was ultimately unable to do so. Does that mean that it didn't occur? Not necessarily, as sometimes stories back then would slip under the radar of the local newspapers, or perhaps I'm just not looking in the right places. But nonetheless, I found this story to be pretty captivating. I've covered so many horrible fates on the channel, and this story sounds completely plausible based on cases I've researched in the past. So with that warning up front, I would like to read you all a story that was posted by a man named Russell Cole on Quora.com. Warning. Don't read this if you're squeamish, because this tale is truly the stuff of nightmares. My dad was chief engineer at a poultry processing plant in Clinton, Iowa in the 1970s and 80s. Portions of the building dated to the late 1800s, and despite the fact that much of the machinery was malfunctioning, obsolete, or simply worn out, it was the job of Dad's department to cobble things together in any way necessary in order to keep the place running. Much of this maintenance work involved the industrial version of string and baling wire repairs, as well as the tried and true mechanics technique of malletizing some recalcitrant bit of machinery. To meet the plant's insatiable need for crushed ice, there stood in an isolated corner of the top floor a creaky old device that was essentially Satan's version of a snow cone machine. A hulking V-shaped metal box, roughly the size of a dump truck. The machine worked in cycles, first freezing inch-thick sheets of ice on the inclined walls, the surface of which then warmed slightly, causing the large planks of ice to slip down and feed into the maw of a central trough where a row of powerful claw-like mechanical devices would activate, first pulverizing the ice into a sand-like consistency, followed by a screw auger which gathered up the crushed ice and forced it into a network of tubes which distributed the product to workstations throughout the plant. Despite a critical demand, the ice machine was not very reliable, and the formed ice sheets would often fail to slip free of the sloping surfaces, causing production in the plant to slow until someone from Dad's department was dispatched to free up the ice machine, a task that required someone to physically enter the ice machine and hammer loose the reluctant ice flow. Clearly, no sane person would set foot in such a device without first deactivating the terrifying array of claws at the bottom of the collecting trough. However, since this procedure happened so often, Barney had figured out he could pop in, straddle the walls, smash away the ice jam, and be out again before the ice crusher activated, thus saving a step or two. That was until he didn't. The first indication to anyone that Barney had miscalculated or lost his footing somehow was when screams erupted on the production floor as the iced-down remains of his macerated, pulped, and pulverized body was piped down to the production floor after having been fed into what was, in essence, an enormous sausage grinder. As you can see, this story is a horrifying one, and based on how working conditions were back in the day, it's one that I could totally see happening. I mean, even to this very day, accidents like this still occur. As I said, I have no evidence to back up this story, but I wanted to share it with you all nonetheless. And once again, I want to give my condolences to all those that lost someone within today's stories. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Also, if you want to make sure you don't ever miss a new upload, you can turn on the bell notification after you subscribe. In the description box below, you will find a link to my merch store and a link to the Cellar Dwellers membership tier for the channel. If you're interested, please take a moment to go check those things out. If you'd like to submit your own scary story or any kind of story recommendation, you can do so using the email linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything you do to support the channel is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.